Khuddhaka Nikàya. Vol. Theragatha, Elder Monks. Chapter. 4 verses. Thera. Nagasamala. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Nagasamala. Reborn in this Buddha age in a clan of Sakyan Rajas, he made the perishableness of life his principle, and, rousing up insight, attained arahantship. He upon that testified to Anna, as occurring in his own experience, thus: bedecked with trinkets and with pretty frock, wreathed with flowers, rattled with sandalwood, in the main street, before the multitude, a dancing girl danced to music's fivefold sound. Into the city I had gone for alms, and passing I saw the dancer decked in brave array, like trap of marmalade. Because of that arose in me the deeper thought, attention to the fact and to the cause. The misery of it all was manifest. Distaste, indifference the mind possessed. And so my heart was set at liberty. O see the seemly monk's order of the path. The threefold wisdom have I made my own. And all the Buddha taught me to do is done. Thera. Bhagavad. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Bhagavad. Reborn in this Buddha age in a clan of Sakyan Rajas, he left the world, together with his clansmen, Anuruddha and Kimbala, and lived by the village of Blakalo. And one day, when he had left his cell to discipline his tendency to sloth and torpor, he fell as he was stepping up onto the terrace. Using this as his goad, he accomplished self-mastery, and developing insight, he won arahantship. Upon that, as he was living in the bliss of fruition, the bliss of Nibbana, the Lord, coming to congratulate him on his solitude, asked him, "How now, bhikkhu, do you continue in earnest?" And he assenting, replied, "Down by drowsiness I got up me from my cell for exercise, and climbed the terrace steps, and fell by that all drowsy to the earth. Rubbing my limbs, once more I went up, and while on terrace to and fro I went. Within it was all alert, composed, intent. Because of that arose in me the deeper thought, attention to the fact and to the cause. The misery of it all was manifest. Distaste, indifference the mind possessed. And so my heart was set at liberty. O see the seemly monk's order of the path. The threefold wisdom have I made my own. And all the Buddha requires me to do is done." This was the Thera's declaration of Anna. Thera. Sāvatthī. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Sāvatthī. In the time of our Exalted One he took rebirth as the son of a nobleman's daughter, whose parents had committed her to the charge of a wanderer, that she might learn other doctrines and usages. Sāvatthī, when grown up, also became a wanderer, and learning various recitations, became a great dialectician, and found none to equal him. Making his hermitage by the city gate, he gave lessons to the children of noblemen and others, and devised 20 questions, which he asked monks and Brahmins. In the narrative to the Sāvatthī Sutta it is handed down, that a Brahma god from the pure abodes heaven devised the questions. There, too, it is told how the Exalted One, when he came to Rajagaha, to the bamboo grove, so answered the questions, that Sāvatthī believed on him, and entering the monk's order, established insight and won arahantship. But after this it was in addressing the bhikkhus who sided with the seceding Devdutta that he spoke these verses. People can never really understand that we are here but for a little spell. But they who grasp this truth indeed cause all strife and quarrels to dissipate. And whereas they who cannot understand deport themselves as the immortals were, they who can really understand the path are as the hail amid a world diseased. All flaccid action, all corrupted rites, suspicious conduct in religious life, on all such work follows no high reward. He who among his fellow monks wins no reverence is far from the good path. as is the firmament far from the earth. Thera. Nandaka. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Nandaka. Reborn in the time of our Exalted One at Sāvatthī in a clansman's family, he was called Nandaka. He entered the monk's order after hearing the Lord teach the path, and developing insight won arahantship. Thereafter, while living in the bliss of emancipation, he gave a lesson by the Lord's order one feast day to the bhikkhunīs, and caused of them to attain arahantship. For that reason the Exalted One ranked him foremost among the teachers of the monks and sisters. Now, one day, while seeking alms in Sāvatthī, a woman, to whom he had been married, saw him and laughed with sinful heart. The Thera, seeing her action, taught her the path under the aspect of emphasizing repugnance at the body thus. Bad on the foul things bad smelling. A very tool of Mara, even this. Your body, from where are oozing those many streams. In number 9 types, that never cease their flow. Build no conceits from former passages. Try not to allure the Tathagata, the very heavens delight them not, how then? Should aught that is merely earthly ever please? The fools who lack discretion, they whose mind is dirty, and their heart by dullness covered. Such men in charms of body take delight. For they are fast in bonds by Mara thrown. To them who are untouched by lust, or hate, or ignorance, these things no pleasures be. Cut are the cords. They from all bonds are free. Thera. Jambuka. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Jambuka. Reborn in this Buddha age in a very poor family, he inclined, as in a previous birth, to feeding on excrement, and left the world to be a naked ascetic, practicing many austerities, and eating beans one by one on the point of a straw. He was 55 years old when the Exalted One, seeing the conditions of prospects of arahantship shining within his heart like a lamp in a jar, himself went to him, and teaching him the path, he achieved Sotapanna. Then said he, "Come, bhikkhu," by that initiating him into monkhood. And Jambuka, upon that conjuring up insight, the Lord established him in arahantship. This is in outline, but a full account is given in the commentary on the Dhammapada verse. Bean after bean by point of straw. At the hour of his passing away he showed that, though once wrongly living, he, by leaning on the Buddha Supreme, had gotten where a disciple ought to get, thus. For 55 years covered with dust and dirt, eating a dinner once a month, and pulling out my hair from head and face. On one leg would I stand, I used no couch. Dry dung I ate, nor would accept when remain. So I did actions leading to much woe and ruin, swept along by mighty flood, till I a refuge in the Buddha found. O see how to that refuge I have come to. O see the seemly monk's order of the path. The threefold wisdom have I made my own, and all the Buddha taught me to do is done. Thera. Seneca. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Seneca. Reborn in this Buddha age in a Brahmin family, as the son of the sister of the Thera of Uruvela, he was named Seneca. When he had learnt the Brahmin's Vedic culture, he lived with his family. And at that time the people held a festival every year in the former half of March, and a worship at the riverside, the festival being called the Gayafagana. Then the Exalted One, out of compassion for those who could be led, stayed near that riverside. And when the people assembled, Seneca came too, and hearing the Lord teaching the path, achieved Sotapanna, entered the monk's order, and in due course won arahantship. Thereafter, reflecting on his victory, Ho was filled with joy, and breathed forth this saying: "Oh, welcome was to me that day of spring, when at Gaya's river feast, I saw the Buddha teach the path supreme, saw the great light, teacher of multitudes, him who has won the highest, guide of all, the conqueror of men and gods, unrivaled seer, mighty magician, Lord glorious, far-shining splendor, pure, immune of mind, the Lord who has killed all asavas, and has attained that where no fear can come. Long lay I bound and harassed by the ties of sect and dogma, but now it is He. The blessed Lord has rescued Seneca from every bond and set at liberty. Thera. Samhutta. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Samhutta. Reborn in this Buddha age in a clansman's family, he achieved Sotapanna, after the Exalted One had passed away, by the treasurer of the path. And entering the monk's order, he developed insight and attained arahantship. So he lived in the bliss of emancipation till a century after the parinibbana of the Exalted One. The Vajjan monks of Vaisali put forward the 10 theses, and were resisted by the Thera and the Khuddhakan monks, and a recension of path and vinaya was made by arahants. Then the Thera, moved by righteous emotion at the proposed perversion of Dhamma and vinaya, uttered these verses, testifying by that to Anna. He who decides in season meet for pause. And he who becomes easy when he should decide, this fool by want of plan and principle did journey hence to suffer many ills. Rewards that should be his do melt away, as in the dark weeks melts the waning moon. Disyanur he incurs, at variance with his friends. He who is slow in season meet for pause, who crosses when it was wrong to hesitate. This wise man by his plan and principle did surely win his way to happiness. The gains that shall be his become ripe and full, as in bright weeks did grow the crescent moon. Honor, renown he wins, at one with friends. Thera. Rahula. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Rahula. Reborn in this Buddha age through our Bodhisat, as the son of Princess Yasodhara, he was reared with a great attendance of nobles. The circumstances of his entering the monk's order are recorded in the Khuddhaka. And he, his knowledge ripened by gracious words in many sutta passages, conjured up insight, and so won arahantship. Upon that, reflecting on his victory, he declared Anna. Twice blessed of fortune am I whom my friends call lucky Rahula. For I am both child of the Buddha and a seer of truths. Yes, and intoxicants are cleaned from me. Yes, and there's no more coming back to be. Arahant am I, worthy men's offerings. Thrice skilled my understanding is of ambrosial things. Blinded are beings by their sense desires. Spread over them like a net. Covered are they by covering of craving, by their heedless ways. Caught as a fish in mouth of funnel net, but I, that call of sense abandoning, have cut and broken the bonds of devil's lure. Craving with craving's root abolishing. Cooled down am I now. Extinguished is fever's fire. Thera. Khandana. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Khandana. Reborn in this Buddha age at Sāvatthī in a wealthy clan, and named Khandana, he lived a domestic life till he heard the Lord preach the path, and became upon that a stream winner. When a child was born to him, he left his home for the monk's order, and taking an insight exercise, lived in the forest. Coming into Sāvatthī to salute the Lord, he stayed in a charnel field. And his wife, hearing of his coming, decorated herself, and, taking her child and many attendants, approached him, judging that by her attractions she could induce him to secede from the monk's order. He, seeing her coming from afar, thought, now will I get outside her reach. And he so conjured up insight that he acquired sixfold abhina. Upon that he rose up above, and so taught her the path, establishing her in the refuges and the precepts. Then he went back to his former place. And when his bhikkhu comrades asked him, saying, serene are you looking, monk? What truths have you discerned? He told of his achievement, and testified to Anna in these verses. in golden gear bedecked, with a troop of maids, attending her, and carrying the baby upon her hip, my wife drew near to me. I marked her coming, mother of my child, in brave array like trap of marmalade. Because of that arose in me the deeper thought, attention to the fact and to the cause. The misery of it all was manifest. Distaste, indifference the mind possessed. And so my heart was set at liberty. O see the seemly monk's order of the path. The threefold wisdom have I made my own. And all the Buddha taught me to do is done. Thera. Dhammika. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Dhammika. Reborn in this Buddha age in a family of Kosalan Brahmins, and named Dhammika, he won faith at the presentation of the Jita Grove, and entered the monk's order. Becoming a resident at a village vihara, he grew impatient and irritable over the duties of incoming bhikkhus, so that the latter abandoned the vihara. Thus he became sole master of the vihara. And a layman reported this to the Exalted One. The Lord sent for Dhammika, and asked him to explain. Upon that he said, "Not only now are you impatient. You were so formerly also." And at the bhikkhu's request he gave a tree talk on the path, with teaching over and above, as follows. Well did the path protect him in truth who follows the Dhamma. Happiness brings along in its train the path well practiced. This shall be his reward by whom the path is well practiced. Never goes to misery he who did follow the path. For not of like result are right and wrong. Wrong leads to baleful, right, to happy doom. Therefore let will be applied to Lord the things that we know. So let him hail with delight so welcome a blessing as this. Firm in the welcome one's path the disciples move onward. Valiantly following him, their sovereign refuge. Plucked out the root of all this cancerous lump, the net of craving wholly torn away. The round of life renewed has ceased. And nothing of clinging did remain. Even as the moon on 15th day sails in clear sky without a stain. When the Lord had taught 3 of the verses, Dhammika, having them in mind, developed insight even as he sat, and won arahantship. And to show the transformation in himself to the Lord, he declared Anna by the last verse. Thera. Sāvatthī. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Sāvatthī. Reborn in this Buddha age at Sāvatthī in a Brahmin family and named Sāvatthī, he heard the Exalted One teaching the path, and believing, entered the monk's order. Taking an exercise, he went to the Lo Ajiri Vihara on the banks of the river Ajakara, and there in due time won arahantship. Going upon that to salute the Lord at Sāvatthī, he stayed a little while, entertained by his family. And having confirmed them in the refuges and the precepts, he was anxious to return to his living. They begged him to stay and be supported by them. But he, showing them why he had come, and declaring his love of retirement by praise of his living place, said, "Whenever I see the crane, her clear bright wings outstretched in fear to flee the black storm cloud, a shelter seeking, to safe shelter borne. Then did the river Ajakara give joy to me. Whenever I see the crane, her plumage pale and silver white outstretched in fear to flee the black storm cloud, seeing no refuge near, the refuge seeking of the rocky cave. Then did the river Ajakara give joy to me, who did not love to see on either bank clustered rose apple trees in fair array, behind the great cave of my hermitage, or hear the soft croak of the frogs, well rid of their undying mortal foes proclaim, not from the mountain streams is it time today to move. Safe is the Ajakara. She brings us luck. Here is it good to be." Then the relatives caused him to depart. And because he showed in this his delight in empty places, this became the Thera's declaration of Anna. Thera. Mudita. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Mudita. Reborn in this Buddha age in the family of a Kosalan commoner, he was named Mudita. When he was come of age, his clan for some reason became objectionable to the king. Mudita, terrified of the king, ran away, and entering the forest, approached the living of an arahant Thera. The latter, seeing his terror, asked him to fear not, and reassured him. "How long, your reverence, will it take before I am free from danger?" "When 7 or 8 months have passed." "I cannot wait so long. I will leave the world, your reverence. Initiate me into monkhood." So he begged, to protect his life. The Thera initiated him into monkhood. And he, coming to believe in the doctrine, lost his fears and exercised himself for insight. Failing to win arahantship, he vowed not to leave his retreat till he had, and upon that succeeded. Thereafter, experiencing the bliss of emancipation, he was asked as to his success by his fellow bhikkhunīs. And he told them how he had succeeded, thus: "I left the world that I might save my life. And, once initiated into monkhood, I won back faith and hope. Valiant in energy I onward pressed. Now and it must be, let this body break and waste and let its flesh consume. My limbs let falter at the knee and fail. I will not eat nor will I drink again. Nor from this lodging let me issue forth. Nor will I even lie upon my side, while yet the dart of craving lies undrawn. Thus firm I remaining, O see. And mark the forward stride of energy. The threefold wisdom have I made my own. And all the Buddha remains us do is done.